Welcome to this explainer where we're going to fundamentally shift how you understand confidence. For so long, society has sold us this idea that confidence is just a fixed personality trait. We're told that some lucky people are simply born with it, and the rest of us, well, we're just doomed to fake it till we make it. But today, we're actually going to look at the hard data proving that confidence is a biological skill. It is something built entirely through action. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to start with a truly bizarre experiment from California back in 1961. A psychologist brought in a group of terrified patients, people with an intense, literally paralyzing fear of snakes. And here's the thing, he didn't give them a pep talk. There were no motivational speeches. Nobody was told to stand in front of a mirror and say positive affirmations. They were simply exposed to a live snake behind glass. The instruction was just to look at it, then approach it. Touch the glass, hold it. Repeated, controlled exposure. And the results? Absolutely stunning. Weeks later, not only were they less afraid of snakes, but their fear of public speaking plummeted. Their confidence in job interviews suddenly improved. Their willingness to tackle difficult conversations at home skyrocketed. Okay, let's dive into this for a second, because this experiment creates a massive open loop that forces us to question everything we think we know. If looking at a snake can magically cure your fear of public speaking, what if everything we assume about naturally confident people is completely backwards? What if confidence isn't something you either have or don't have? What if those highly confident people you might envy simply collected the right kind of mental evidence earlier in life than you did? Which brings us to Section 1, the biology of belief. Let's transition into the hard science here to diagnose exactly how your brain physically constructs this feeling of certainty. We really need to look under the hood. The core discovery that came out of that 1961 snake experiment is brilliant. What shifted in those patients wasn't their underlying personality. It was a single belief buried deep in their brain's machinery, the belief that I can handle hard things. Psychologists call this self-efficacy, and it is the true neurological source code of confidence. Stanford psychologist Albert Bandura realized that belief in your own competence is not inherited, it's built. And it's built almost entirely through direct personal evidence of past success. Not by someone patting you on the back and telling you you're capable, but by actually proving it to yourself. Just think about the biological battle happening inside your head right now. On one side, you have the amygdala, your brain's ancient alarm system. It doesn't distinguish between a hungry lion on the savannah and a boardroom full of strangers judging your presentation. Both trigger the exact same flood of cortisol, the same tightened chest, the same instinct to freeze or flee. But then you have the prefrontal cortex, the rational, forward-thinking part of your brain. Confidence isn't the absence of that amygdala alarm. No way. It's the ability of your prefrontal cortex to be trained to override it. Every single time you consciously choose to take action despite that alarm going off, and you survive it, neuroplasticity kicks in. You are literally rewiring your brain tissue. And the reward for that? Dopamine. Most of us just think of dopamine as a pleasure chemical, right? But neuroscientists now understand it's really the brain's molecule for motivation and prediction. Every small win releases a controlled dopamine signal that essentially tells your brain, hey, we survived that. That action, that was worth repeating. Moving right along to Section 2, the psychology of doubt. So if the biological formula is really that simple, just act, survive, and get a dopamine reward, why do so many of us struggle with such paralyzing self-doubt? Well, the crucial point is that we fall into specific psychological traps that train our brains over decades to view our comfort zone as the only place of safety. It usually starts with childhood criticism, where a child is criticized for failing rather than encouraged for trying. That morphs into perfectionism in adulthood, which is this completely flawed belief that you must be absolutely certain of success before you're even allowed to attempt something. Then you add in social comparison, which is totally weaponized by algorithms showing you humanity's highlight reel 24/7. Your brain was simply not built to process 10,000 curated victories of other people every month. It just reads it as evidence of your own inadequacy. Mix all that with negative self-talk, and eventually you get imposter syndrome, that terrifying sensation of being a total fraud who's going to be exposed at any minute. Let's pull in Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck's research to see how this builds. Researchers found that imposter syndrome doesn't just naturally fade away once you achieve success. It only fades when you fundamentally reframe how you view competence. Overcoming this whole shebang requires shifting from a fixed mindset, where failure is seen as a final, devastating verdict on your static abilities, to a growth mindset, where competence is viewed as a process and failure is treated as exactly what it is, just data. All right, Section 3, the proof, featuring the titans of the loop. To prove this isn't just some academic theory, Let's look at some highly recognizable titans who absolutely were not born fearless, but rather built their confidence entirely from scratch. None of these icons were exceptions to the science. They are the ultimate proof of it. Michael Jordan was cut from his varsity basketball team as a sophomore. He didn't rely on some innate self-belief. He treated that rejection as incomplete evidence and went looking for new evidence by practicing before dawn every single day. Oprah Winfrey was literally told on air early in her career that she was unfit for television. Can you imagine? She didn't use a magic mantra to fix her confidence. She rebuilt it by accumulating thousands of hours of competence, reading rooms and people until it became second nature. Elon Musk faced early business crises so severe he slept on his own factory floor just to keep his company alive. Confidence wasn't the calm before their crises, it's what remained after they survived them.
This brings us to Section 4, the confidence loop.
This right here is the exact, repeatable formula these high achievers ran thousands of times, often invisibly, to rewire their brains. This is the biological loop. And the absolute most vital takeaway here is step 1, take action. Action must come first. You cannot wait to feel confident before you act. As the source material beautifully puts it, waiting to feel confident before acting is like waiting for a fire to feel warm before you light it, right? It makes no sense. You act, you achieve a tiny success, your brain releases that dopamine signal, you gain a slight bump in self-efficacy, and then, and only then, are you biologically equipped to take a slightly bigger action. So let's get practical in Section 5, the actionable toolkit. How do you actually apply this hard science to your own life, starting today? Well, you can start manufacturing undeniable evidence for your frightened nervous system using these specific tools. First up, exposure therapy. Fear shrinks only through direct, repeated contact with the thing you fear, not by avoiding it or thinking positive thoughts about it. Second, identity shift. Filter your actions through a new self-image. Telling yourself, I am a writer who hasn't published yet, creates vastly different follow-through than I am trying to be a writer. Third, keep small promises to yourself. Trust is built through a track record. Every tiny promise you keep becomes solid evidence for your self-efficacy. And finally, expansive posture. Now, this isn't a cheap party trick. Your physical and hormonal states are constantly talking to each other. An open posture causes measurable shifts in your cortisol and testosterone, literally informing your brain of how it should feel. Closing the loop on our 1961 snake experiment, those patients didn't heal through positive thinking. They were never told to just believe in themselves. They were simply given a way to prove something to a nervous system that doesn't listen to speeches. Fear inherently shrinks in the presence of undeniable proof, and evidence is quite literally the only currency the confident brain actually accepts. I want to leave you with this provocative final thought to carry with you long after this explainer ends. Confidence is not the reward that is handed to you after you succeed. It is the necessary toll you must pay in the form of uncomfortable action and undeniable proof to get there. So, what small piece of evidence are you going to force your brain to accept today?